All right, good evening. The time being 7 PM, all members of the planning board being present, I call this meeting to order. Let anybody in the audience who's here for agenda item D, which is 1563 Andover Street, the applicant has requested to have a continuance for that to our June 3rd meeting, so if you're here for that, feel free to go home because you won't miss anything. Otherwise, we'll start with the agenda as listed. Obviously, it's noted on here, our executive session was canceled. We have approval of minutes. We have none this evening. So we'll move on to agenda item B, committee reports, administrative actions. Are there any committee reports any of the members wish to make at this time?
All set, Mr. Chairman.
Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item B2, town planners report. Ms. Louder?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few items of note, 4 new applications for our June 3rd meeting as follows. We have 2 family suites coming in for 91 Pike Street and 11 Parker Ave respectively. 2131 Main Street is on for a site plan special permit modification, so for some changes to the landscaping and impervious areas on the property. And 792 Main Street for a site plan review and land disturbance permit for an expansion of the existing retail area. Next item of note, the Taste of the Town is hosted by the Wilmington-Tewksbury Chamber of Commerce on Wednesday, May 15th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Hilton Garden Inn, which is at 4 Highwood Drive in Tewksbury. Tickets are $30 per person, and I encourage folks interested to visit the chamber website for more details. Next item of note that the YMCA programming and Chess Wizards programming, recent initiatives undertaken by town staff and as approved by the select board, launched last week. The YMCA started their programming and has started receiving positive feedback from participants, and we're looking forward to the Y expanding their offerings in the coming weeks and months. And the Chess Wizards had their first class on Friday, May 10th. My understanding is that 8 students were in attendance despite some of the major traffic challenges in the area on Friday due to the accident earlier in the day, but it was very well received, and looking forward to having them with us more as we go on the summer. And the Tewksbury Community Market returns to Livingston Street on Thursday, June 6th from 4 to 7 p.m. We have a great group of vendors lined up for this year with a handful of new faces and a lot of returning favorites, so keep an eye on the town's social media and website for announcements there. And then one other item of note, the town is currently looking for a new conservation agent, so if anybody you or you know has an excitement surrounding wetland protection, please reach out to us in the Community Development Office. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Louder. Moving on to agenda item B3, 1418 Main Street, as-built acceptance and bond release. Once you get settled, just give your name for the record, and the floor is yours.
Good evening.
Want to pull that microphone down a little bit so I
Yeah,
can...
just just tip it, there you go.
Good evening. Bill Hall with Civil Design Consultants. So, yeah, what we have submitted was an application for a bond release here and have final sign-off for this as-built. I'm not going to go through it in a ton of detail because we put together this letter. We believe it's in substantial compliance with the original approved plan set as well as with the modifications that followed that. We noted some minor deviations in our letter that we submitted, and if you have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them, but otherwise, we've submitted with conservation for request for certificate of compliance. We're waiting for a hearing on that, and that's all that we have outstanding for this.
All right, we'll start, Mr. Duffy.
Yeah, I have no questions on this, Mr. Chairman.
All right,
Good.
Mr. Champion?
Thank you. Nothing for me, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lazardi?
Nothing.
Mr. Vitalia?
Just one question. What is the amount of the bond? Do you know that?
I don't know off the top of my head. no.
$20,000.
Okay. Thought it was 2,000. So, I'm only kidding. Yeah, no, I have no questions. The development looks great. I reviewed all the letters from the town engineer, and looks like it's ready to go. All set?
The chair is all set as well. So with that, what is the pleasure of the board? A motion to release the bond?
So moved.
We have a motion made to release the $20,000 bond. We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
That brings us to agenda item C, 402 Main Street. This is continued from our 418 meeting. Do we have anyone here for 402 Main Street? Once you get settled, just give your names for the record. The floor is yours. the same suggestion, just tip the mic down a little bit towards yourself, that way when you talk, we get it. Perfect.
All right. All right, good evening, Mr. Chair. Good evening, members of the board. For the record, my name is Garrett Picarillo, engineer with GPI. With me also is Heather Montecup, also from GPI. Heather's here to discuss any traffic items that may arise, or discussion items that may arise during the meeting. Also with us is Jim Waterman behind us here. He's with Gerard Development, the applicant. So since we were in front of the board last, we've really just been working towards addressing all of the comments we've received, getting clean letters from the town, as well as the peer review, the beta peer review, as well as the VAI traffic review. We resubmitted and got a second review from both peer reviewers, and we do have, at this time, we have essentially a clean letter from VAI regarding the traffic study that we've addressed, everything that, all the follow-up items they had on their second review. And with the beta review letter, we essentially have a clean letter from them. There were 3 items that they still had some follow-up remarks on. Those have been included in the letter from Ms. Louder dated 5/9/2024. They're in red. Those 3 items, they're very, very minor in nature, but they just require a little bit of work there. We're really just here tonight. I didn't want to go through the plans too much. There haven't been a lot of changes, so we really are, I guess, respectfully requesting a vote tonight and an approval. We feel we've addressed all of the items as I just went over. We've addressed all the items that have come up during the meetings, all the town's concerns we feel. So that's really why we're here tonight. Heather's here as needed to discuss the traffic. She's willing to go into, as little or as much as you'd like her to. We don't want to just, unless you'd like her to, just go into a full-on presentation of it. So it's really whatever the board would like us to do regarding the traffic.
So why don't we go in reverse, because we have our traffic consultant. So we'll give you an opportunity just to, give us an overview of if you're in agreement with their comment that they're pretty much all set with you, and why, basically.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Daniel Sivita. I'm a traffic engineer with Finasson Associates.
Just sent you an email today.
Yep. Filling in for Jeffrey Dirk tonight. We completed the traffic peer review for the 402 Main Street proposal, just kind of by way of a background for kind of how the peer review process has gone, the important documents and dates. The applicant had originally submitted plans and a traffic impact and access study in February of 2024, which we then reviewed and provided a set of comments in our March 11th letter. They were very minor comments, mainly technical in nature, with the one kind of most significant comment being that we requested that the applicant's traffic engineer include 2 additional signalized intersections in their assessment, which they did, and they also addressed all of our remaining and technical comments for the traffic study and site plan with an updated traffic study dated April 2024, as well as the revised set of plans that you have before them. And we do agree with the applicant's traffic engineer that this project will not result in a significant impact or increase to motorist delays or vehicle queuing within the study area, and is in general expected to be relatively minor. That being said, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that the board may have, but as stated, most of our comments were resolved. We just have one lingering comment, which is a recommendation that all deliveries to the site be conducted outside of the peak periods, which we anticipate they would be anyway, but that was our one kind of remaining comment. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions about the peer review process or traffic that the board may have.
All right, so why don't we go across the board and see if we have questions. Mr. Ciampa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So relative terms sometimes concern me. When we were doing the many cannabis proposals in here, we often saw numbers that were projected, and sometimes we were able to get historical actual traffic numbers, which were very different. And obviously, the applicant always presented whichever was more favorable to them, which is understandable. I mean, that's, they're here to get their project approved, so I don't dispute that. What I wanted to know is this, to my mind, we have, I think, 3 or 4 other car washes in Tewksbury. I don't know of any of them that has such a substantial amount of queuing area. So I wanted to know if your peer review takes into account the speed at which they plan on turning cars over through the wash area and the amount of queuing area that they have. That, I mean, I'm assuming they have that much queuing area because they're expecting that many customers. So how does this site and this layout and the queuing area and the amount of cars they can stack in, the speed at which they pass through the washing area, how does this project compare to other similar projects? Across the street, you have a single car wash with a very small queuing area, for example.
Yep, so those kind of variables, we'll call them, for car washes, those are all kind of taken into effect when we look at the data from the Institute of Transportation Engineers, which is what the applicant used to come up with the proposed trip generation for the project. So there isn't the dependent variable was the number of lanes, this case being 1, but we don't anticipate that necessarily just because there is a large amount of queuing that necessarily correlates to a significant increase in the number of trips. This site is well situated for a car wash, being thin and rather long, meaning that they're able to provide that much queuing, but it's not necessarily an indicator of the number of trips that would be generated by it. There's still only a single tunnel for cars to be washed by, so that's really kind of the determining factor when you look at the number of trips that are going to be generated by a car wash.
Okay, and to refresh my memory, this is a 60-second wash cycle from entry to exit, was that?
We somewhere around 1 to 2 minutes, depending on the season that we're washing.
Okay, so,
Longer season.
Jill, so if you're gonna answer, if you're gonna add them into the answer, and I gotta bring you up to the mic, only because it's gotta be picked up for home and for the minutes after, so
Fair enough.
if they point to you, so you might wanna sit over there, just in case they point to you for an answer, but if you wouldn't mind repeating what you said,
No, he can stand right there.
And your name?
and your name, please.
Jim Waterman with GR Development. So to answer the question again, sorry, yes, we can usually wash a car somewhere between 1 to 2 minutes, depending on seasonality. So when we're spending a little bit more time washing a dirtier vehicle, that's going to take a little bit longer through the queue than some of our members that we can process a little bit quicker because they're regularly washed at our facility.
okay, and again, because we did start this quite some time ago, so actually, now that you're up the mic, this might go faster. So during your busiest time, how many customers do you typically see coming through in an hour? Based on, you have, what, 10 other facilities, something like that?
Yes, 18 as a matter of fact.
18,
That's
okay.
correct.
So as an average, right, not picking the worst,
Yeah.
but not picking the slowest, that's, you know.
Yeah, as an average, we can process about 65 to 75 vehicles an hour on average.
Okay, so does that coincide with your trip generation of 75 in, 75 out
It should be
every
much
hour
lower
on
than I think
average?
what the study showed.
During the Saturday midday, which is the busiest peak hour for the project, the applicant anticipated approximately 145 vehicle trips. And a vehicle trip is a one-way trip, so a vehicle that comes in and exit, that counts as 2 trips. So essentially divided by half, you're looking at around 72, 73 vehicles during the peak hour, yes.
Okay, and so your assessment that it's no substantial increase in trips, I mean, I'm just thinking of the 99 restaurant, the gas station, Wamisit Lanes, the previous greenery, none of those generate traffic to that degree. I mean, even the gas station, which is probably the fastest, is still 5 minutes per car in and out. So how do you base your assessment that this is no substantial increase in traffic?
So our comment, as it relates to the significant increases is more geared towards motorist delays and vehicle queuing at specific intersections. And Route 38 itself carries, I believe, 21 to 22,000 vehicles over the course of an average day. But more so as we relate to, there's not a significant increase in motorist delays or vehicle queuing. That is, the project was anticipated to increase vehicle queues by 2 or 3 vehicles during the peak hours. So that's kind of the material basis that we look at, something you can physically see. If you're waiting behind 5 cars now, there's going to be 7 or 8 cars in the future during those peak periods, things like that. So it's from those increases of 2 to 3 vehicles or increases in an average motorist delay of 5, 6, 7 seconds at the intersection that we come to that conclusion that the project will not have a significant impact.
Okay, so if a normal queue on a busy Saturday is 10 cars, now we're looking at 13 or 15 cars, so 30 to 50% is not a significant increase.
I'll take that. I feel bad. But that's on-site queuing, and just to go back to the other question that you had about queuing on-site, if we can provide queuing on-site, able to stack vehicles, that's exactly what we want to do to ease the town's concern about anything spilling over onto the main road. So as much stacking as we can provide on the site is what we're going to do to accommodate the vehicles. What he's saying is that we roughly, I'm just saying rounding about a trip a minute or so is going to leave that site practically. And when you put that traffic out onto Main Street, it is not going to have a significant impact on the motoring public on those intersections. We're not saying that, you know, today there's probably, right, no queue on the Floral driveway, but there'll be a queue of 2 to 4 vehicles on the site driveway in the future with the project in place. However, it's not impacting flow on Main Street.
Okay, I mean, I'll definitely stipulate that I think you've got the site fairly well managed. My concern is the traffic light at the intersection of Pike Street, which is a very busy intersection, and then we already have multiple businesses. If you were to come out of this site and take a left, you would have Wamisit Lane's traffic, 99 Restaurant traffic, JD's traffic, and then now you're getting all the way down towards the set of lights where the Ocean State Job Lot Plaza is.
And that's exactly why VAI had us look at the Ocean State Job Lot Plaza and that 5-legged intersection with Pike and all of that. So that is, our original traffic study did not have those study area intersections, and in April it was expanded to include those to make sure that our impact on those intersections was insignificant. And that's what the traffic study proved.
What I will also add is it relates to kind of vehicle queuing, and we're talking about any increase that the project may have. We're looking at the 95th percentile vehicle queues at a lot of these intersections. So what we're really talking about is during the busiest peak hour of the day, or two, we're really looking at the busiest 3 minutes. That's roughly the 95% of 60 minutes is 57 minutes. So we're really looking at the busiest 3 minutes at the roadway. So that's where we get into, it's a minor increase during those 3 minutes. So during the other 57 minutes during the peak hours and 23, 22 other hours during the day, the impact of the project is expected to be less than that, and traffic volumes on the roadway are expected to be less than that. So we're kind of really looking at a worst case scenario during a very small portion of the peak period, and then basing our impact off of that worst case conditions, essentially.
Okay, just I've been up and down that area, basically all different times of day and all different days. And when it gets busy there, it's hard for cars to get out. It's hard for anybody to go, especially if someone were to come out of this site and want to go south to get into that other lane of traffic, because there's a steady almost from, I'd say 9 or 10 in the morning on Saturday and Sunday, the traffic coming south from 495, Home Depot, Walmart, Lowell, that's a steady stream of cars queued up at that set of lights, plus there's a backup on Pike Street of cars, and Assel Street is also coming down. We have a lot of cars coming south. If someone wants to exit this site and turn south, I can foresee them having a really hard time getting out there.
Which is not uncommon to many other unsignalized driveways along the Route 38 corridor. Like you said, there's a fair amount of traffic traveling along, but that is another one of the good reasons for this site, a lot of queuing for vehicles. So even if it takes them a little while to get out onto Route 38, there's plenty of space within the site to kind of store that stacking.
Okay, are we just doing traffic for the first round? All right, that's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lozardi?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just one question from me. So it sounds like the intent is to have some of the cars exiting queue up here. Based on the traffic studies, does it seem like we have enough room for those cars to queue up? Or are they going to, at peak times, queue all the way up to the end of the actual car wash and slow things down?
We are, the 95th percentile queue, as stated, is worst case is 4 vehicles, which goes to the beginning of the tunnel. It's not expected to extend past that.
Okay, all right, my questions.
Mr. Duffy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I mean, it would be reasonable to say that no matter how many vehicles you had queued in there, that there would be, only one car at a time coming out of the car wash. So there's only good, that exiting is going to be sort of spaced out a minute to 2 minutes, depending on the season, if I'm reading you that right. So it's not like there's going to be this line of cars trying to pull out onto 38 one way or the other, because only one car at a time is coming out every minute or two, no matter how many are in the queue. That'd be fair?
Yeah.
I would agree with that assessment. One thing I will also add is there are those multitude of spaces for kind of the vacuuming. So it isn't necessarily just one vehicle every 1 or 2 minutes, but I do agree that it isn't like all of a sudden there'll be 20 vehicles trying to exit.
Sure. Yeah, and that's all I really have right now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fratelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a hard time believing your analysis, to tell you the truth. I mean, that's a busy spot up there, and you're saying this is not going to cause any problems at all to the area?
What we're saying is, and Heather kind of touched on this briefly, we're not saying that there's no problems out there now. If you go and, based on the analysis that GPI had run, there are certain movements at the signalized intersections that we had additionally requested that they look at that are operating at or over capacity, level service E or F, which they're just like school grades, if you can think about. So we're not saying that there's not existing problems out there now. Good news is Mass DOT is in the process of designing and implementing improvements at the 6-legged intersection, which will include an adaptive traffic control signal system, which should help to alleviate some of the existing congestion issues that are there now. But what we're saying when we say that the project will not have a significant impact is not that there's no problem now, it's that the project will not exacerbate it such that there is now some huge identified deficiency.
Okay. I don't know, I have a hard time. I live near there. I see the traffic comes out of there with Dunkin' Donuts and the 99, and that's during the daytime. The nighttime is an even worse scenario because of Wamisit Lanes next door being open and now functioning, and now you're adding more cars. So with that being said, can you, maybe direct it to you maybe, is how far is the driveway, entrance driveway, from the abutting driveway?
Yeah, so, yeah, you're talking the Wamisit, the adjacent Wamisit driveway or the adjacent roadway?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so,
It seems pretty close to me, that's my concern.
yeah.
Very close.
Yep, it is. It's about, I believe it's about 40 feet separation from the driveway. We are maintaining the existing curb cut, but we also are asking for waivers regarding driveway separation as well. But it's approximately, I believe it's about 40 feet.
So you're saying 40 feet from the abutting Wamisit Lane's driveway to your entrance driveway?
Yeah, along the property line, I guess is,
So you're coming right in along the property line, correct, on that side?
no, so our entrance driveway is right here. And again, I could actually give you a measurement real quick if you, just one second. So I was just essentially saying from here to here, and I may have, I apologize, it's actually more like 30 feet. I was just saying along the property line is how I was measuring that. So we're coming in about as tight as we can to the property line, but we have to fit in a 30-foot radius per Mass DOT, so we have to have some offset there
Yeah.
to tie in legally, not be on the property line.
Okay. Because the site you have is not really that wide, correct? Compared
Correct,
to your
absolutely.
abutting.
So that was kind of, a constraint, obviously, that we had, and hence the request for the waivers for the driveway separation, because we didn't even really we don't have the frontage to meet those requirements technically.
All right, so with that being said now, how many cars can queue coming out of the driveway again?
So from the exit.
The tunnel, right?
Yeah, from the tunnel, if you could queue 6 cars.
6 cars
Yep.
before they get out? Okay.
Before, yeah, I guess, go ahead, is that Heather?
Yeah, sorry. It's 4 cars before you, to get to the exit of the, right where he has it, the throat of the
Tunnel.
car wash, and then where you can exit out
Yes.
from the VAX.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
right-
you can
so
queue
right
much
here.
more than that, but at 4 cars is where, like, the people coming out of the tunnel and the people come out of the VAC hit the 4th car. That's what
Okay.
we're saying, but
So
like.
how would
that
you,
doesn't
how would you
mean-
queue more cars? Just curious. In the tunnel?
Not in the tunnel, there, you could have at least 2 cars waiting outside of the tunnel there on the curve, and then you could have however many stacked leaving the vacuum. Not that we anticipate that, like I said, our analysis is showing 4 vehicles, but we're just saying that the 4 vehicles can stack before there's a bit of on-site, they have to wait.
Okay.
They have to wait.
So am I correct in saying that in the event there's a queuing problem at the driveway exiting, cars will be stuck inside the tunnel, correct?
No, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if cars start backing up, you would hold they would hold back the traffic from entering into the tunnel. They're not just
We
going to
have
have them sit in the tunnel.
We have automated technology at the exit of our car wash. It's called an anti-collision pad, so it sees a vehicle sitting there, says we got a problem, it shuts our conveyor down, lets our wash attendants know that there's some sort of traffic issue at the end. Our attendants address the traffic issue, and we move forward.
Okay. But that's before they get in or while they're in?
While they're in the tunnel, we would stop the tunnel automated.
Okay. So you could be in the tunnel and then it stops all of a sudden?
Correct.
How many cars can be in the tunnel at once? Just curious.
In this tunnel, we anticipate we could probably load maybe 7 total if we got them really tight. It's highly unlikely, we usually don't run that tight.
Okay, all right. So on page, so this is for our traffic consultant. I'm looking at page 4 here, and it says the level of service is an F. Can you explain that for me?
Yes. So as I kind of briefly touched on earlier, there are the metrics that we use to, like school grades, define the delay a average motorist would have when waiting at an intersection. So your level of service A is there's generally no delay, no vehicle queuing, continually going down until you hit level service E, which is a movement that is identified to be at the design capacity for the roadway. Then anything above that is level service F. It is over capacity. So those movements that are level service F, based on the predicted future analysis, are predicted to be over capacity for that approach, for that lane, for that movement, what have you.
Okay, so if you're saying it's an F and it's over capacity, wouldn't that be an issue with the traffic on the street?
So, once again, we're not saying that there's not an issue there now. We fully acknowledge that there are existing capacity issues on Route 38 that exist independent of this project. What we're saying is that this project is not anticipated to exacerbate those issues further.
Okay, I mean, I listen, I'm hearing what you're saying, but I've got a problem, believing that because of this, my experience being at the site on a number of times, but, so how many cars are you expecting to come per day to that site?
Per day, hold on, I just have to get that number.
I know you have peak hours and all that, correct?
Correct, yeah, we analyze the peak hours and but the daily number is, let me just get that, it's proposed total without taking into account the trips that are already at the site today because of the flower shop, is 1,510 daily weekday trips.
1,510
And 10
weekday daily trips?
in
That's in and
24
out.
hours, in and out,
Yeah, so
correct. Yeah, that's
half
total
in, half
number.
out?
Correct.
Right, okay. I gotta believe that's a lot of cars. I mean, that's good for business, I'm sure, right?
Probably less than a fast food restaurant though, right? I would
I'd
guess.
be more than happy to address this.
Sure.
If I did 1,500 cars in and out of my site in a day, I would have plenty more than 18 of these things.
Plenty more, what?
I would have many more washes. That
Okay.
would be a uber successful site, and out of 18, I have none of them that perform at that ratio. It's a very aggressive number that they gave in the study, so I think Mr. Champa had said something about numbers being more favorable to the applicant. This is, I think, one of those incidents where the numbers are more favorable towards really a traffic impact versus what's reality. My busiest day in New England, on a banner day, we'd be lucky to hit 1,000. I haven't hit 1,000 in Massachusetts yet, where I've washed 1,000 vehicles. People also utilize our vacuum service that don't use the wash, even at that, those trips are very low. About 85% of our wash customers use our vacuums, only about 15% use the vacuums and leave. So, and you got to remember, that's not 365 days a year, sir. That's on average 260 wash days, and out of those 260 wash days, there's clouds, or there's, maybe it's a drier day, but it's not a sunny, bright Saturday where we would just be at full capacity. So we really don't ever see that type of capacity. So this number that Heather's providing as part of this traffic study, again, is very much not conservative from our perspective.
Okay.
And that also further leads to the point kind of when I was talking about the vehicle queuing, looking at the 95th percentile, that worst case condition. Baked throughout these traffic studies are factors of safety, essentially, where in order to provide a conservative estimate, you do or do not do something. For here, as it relates to the trip generation, if you overestimate, provide a conservative estimate of the number of trips, then in reality, intersections may operate better, there may be less queuing, maybe less delays, that sort of thing. So the traffic study is really a worst case on all accounts to assess what the possible worst case impacts of the project are. Then we make the determination based off that.
So my biggest concern, being a planning board member, like my colleagues here, is the fact that I don't want to bring in additional traffic to an area that's already heavily trafficked, and and you guys are in front of us for that reason. So I'm trying to get a good understanding of the traffic, because the last thing I want to do is bring more traffic to a town that's already complaining about traffic on a regular basis, all over town, from South Tewksbury to where you guys are and everything else. And I want to get it right if we can. And then and my concern is public safety as well, and accidents in the area and so forth. So hence my questions to you and you as well, trying to get it right, and for all parties involved here. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll end my questions and for more discussion.
I'm going to try this a different way. If this intersection were an A, right, the impact that this project's causing, would it cause it to go from A to B? Is there enough impact to change its grade?
I can't say that without running that kind of analysis. It's not a huge number of trips, especially when you look at, once they exit the site and head to 38, we're looking at around about a 50-50 split going north and south on 38. So I can't say for certain. It very well may, but
It's the traffic on Main Street that's driving the level of service on all
Well,
the
that's
side
what,
roads.
I mean, we're already
Yes.
talking about F, but F
Exactly.
exists. So
Correct.
the alternative, if we're not going to my eye, the fact that, that's the fact now. You're not causing the F.
Correct.
So when I'm trying to figure out what impact you're having beyond where it is now, that was why I was asking, would it go from A to B or, or something like that? Because F's the end. We don't have a Z. So, we don't do, you know what I mean? We can't change that part. But the alternative, if that's the determining factor, the fact that we're at F, that would mean we can't authorize any more businesses. Because if they generate any amount of extra traffic, there is extra traffic. I mean, the fact of the matter is, the road is the problem, not necessarily the businesses. Unless those businesses are creating a significant difference, exacerbating the problem. So that's why I'm talking about the grade difference between, an A to a B. Because if this is no, this would go from an A to a C if we were already at A. That's a significant difference. I mean, that's a 2-grade drop. You know what I mean? That means they're dropping a lot of traffic in difference from where you were. But what you seem to be describing is we're already have bad traffic, that we get. But this isn't I think your word, exacerbating that to any kind of significant degree. I'm not sure how many other businesses we could figure out that might go there that aren't going to have any cars coming in and out of it. If you're already at a non-exacerbating problem, you know what I mean? So that's sort of what I'm trying to figure out is, you're saying no to this, for example, if that's what you're saying because of the traffic. What could you say yes to? You know what I mean? Because it's not changing what's there. What's there exists. It's a problem. Okay, well then your choices are either, is a project going to be a significant change to that problem or not? And if it is, then okay. But if it's not, your alternative is to simply say no to every business that could possibly go on the lot, because a car is either going to come in or out unless they don't ever need customers. I mean, we have the same issue anywhere on 38, whether it's here or anywhere else. That's the same measurement, because unsuccessful businesses aren't going to last very long. So they have to have some amount of success, which means cars coming in and out, or it's pointless for them and pointless for us, because it's not going to last as a business very long. It's going to be an empty lot again. So that's really why I was trying to figure out, a different way of saying it, because I don't know if the way you're saying it is enough to say, so it sinks in.
maybe this would also help if I added this. We've talked a lot about the level of service of F. That is just for specific movements at a lot of these intersections as well. So when we look at signalized intersections and even unsignalized to a certain extent, we look at by approach or by movement, left turns, right turns, or by lanes. So not all movements at these intersections are operating at level of service F. If we look at existing conditions, and I'm just looking at GPI's updated report, the overall intersection level of service, so that's for all motorists that arrive at the intersection, currently is level of service D, which is defined as the limits of acceptable. Because remember, once you hit E, then you're at capacity. So then if we fast forward and we look at the overall intersection level of service at those signalized intersections, we see that there is only one instance where the project-generated traffic trips a change in level of service. And it's at the Route 38 Ocean State Job Lot driveway, where the overall intersection level of service there during the Saturday midday changes from C to D. So it's still within acceptable parameters, the overall intersection. There's just specific movements at some of these intersections that have been identified to be above capacity, and the impact of this project on those movements, those approaches, was anticipated to be less than 10 seconds for an average motorist, and an increase in vehicle queuing of up to 2 or 3 vehicles, because that's really where you see the biggest impact of the project, is it's not necessarily on a movement that's operating fine now. There will be some degradation in operating conditions there, but it's really where you have an existing problem. Adding more vehicles to that approach is going to have an exponential increase. So when we take a step back and we look at the overall intersections, they are anticipated based on our future traffic projections and with the improvements that Mass DOT is anticipating to complete at the six-legged intersection. The overall intersections are operating within acceptable parameters. So that is just something else I'd like to say. I know we've focused a lot on level of service F. It's not the intersections as a whole. It's just specific movements at some of those intersections.
Okay.
And at some of the unsignalized intersections, like our site driveway or the 99, that is level of service, like the 99 is a level of service F, whether our project goes in or not. It's an F because of the delays on the driveway, because of the traffic on Main Street. It is not over capacity. The volume to capacity ratio is not over 1.00. It's quite low, which means that there is capacity for more traffic. It, just like you said, it can't get out. It's just the level of service is due to the delay of waiting. And that's why you want to make sure that you have enough room to queue vehicles so that they can wait and not disrupt traffic on the Main Street. And that would be true for any unsignalized driveway along the corridor.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, go ahead, Vinny, I just have one more follow-up.
One of my other questions I have, I know you went down to the Ocean State job lot light, right? Did you factor in the new cannabis store coming in?
Yes.
So that was one of our comments on the original traffic study, was to reach out to the town, see if there were any other developments. Then that was included as a part of their, as part of the updated traffic study, traffic volumes with that.
And that's not going to cause a factor either?
Correct. So once again, as I was talking about with the factors of safety, so there's the existing traffic volumes that were as measured, then adjusted upwards based on Mass DOT standards, then projected 7 years in the future, taking into account 2 things. One, any additional developments, the dispensary, and 2, just the general background traffic growth rate based on anticipated growth trends in the area, which was another one of our first original comments. We had suggested a slightly higher, from 0.5% per year to a 1% per year background traffic growth rate. So we're projecting out 7 years based on data and making a conservative estimate of what traffic is going to be like in those 7 years. So that's another one of those kind of factors of safety I was talking about, where in all likelihood, much like the trip generation for this project, we're likely overstating how much traffic is going to be on the roadway. So we can then assess the impacts of this project at the worst case condition.
So do you have numbers for that cannabis store, or were you looking at any numbers for that?
We use the IT trip generation manual for that, because they didn't have to do a traffic study, so we had to generate it for ourselves.
I just vision people coming in, and once they open up, coming off of 495, possibly coming down 38 by Walmart to the cannabis store, because it's probably the closest one, rather than going towards Lowell for the other cannabis store that's on the Lowell line. But I just see that being another issue with them, with more traffic coming in and coming in. It's like, all set then. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Champ, you had something?
Yes, so you made reference that Mass DOT is going to be doing some work, probably an overhaul of what you call the six-legged intersection,
Yes.
doing adaptive signalization. So is there, what kind of information do you have on that? Is there a timeline? Is it just something that's in there like future? So I have 2 concerns, right?
Yep.
Number one is, while that work is being done, and Mass DOT work does take, quite a bit of time. I don't know how long that particular project would take, but I'm assuming it would probably be fairly complex and therefore somewhat lengthy. Is it fair to say that while that project is under construction, that traffic on 38 is going to be really bad through that area?
I would not anticipate that, once again, it's going to get much worse than it is now.
But I'm saying during the construction, when they have lane closures and all of that, and you're doing diversions and temporary lanes and things of that nature, and instead of 4 lanes with extra turn lanes left and right and whatnot, everything is sort of narrowed down and whatnot. So if this project were up and running, and then they did that work at the intersection, right, would we be looking at, would that be a pretty bad situation?
It is not a stretch to say that if you close lanes, start to work at intersections, that operations degrade. Generally, what MassDOT does is, one, they don't do it during the peak hours for obvious reasons, because you don't want to work at the times where there's the most vehicles. But then it also comes down to the construction plans, when they have to do it. Do you know if that plan's in the tip yet?
We have here that based on the project information, that it's currently under construction, so they have begun work, but I don't know when it's scheduled to be fully completed. But just as Daniel had mentioned, most permits that are issued, so it would be the same for a Mass DOT project, you don't typically, you would need special permission to do work during the peak hours. So typically it starts after 9 and you have to close up by 3 o'clock and have all lanes opened again. But you do have to, have traffic control plans and everything. That's all approved through Mass DOT, and that's all part of the Mass DOT project. So
And just to clarify, because this was the order, it says at 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.?
9 a.m. to 3 p.m. is typical for most access permits that are issued. This is a Mass DOT project. I don't do a lot of public work, but they don't get an access permit per se. The project's just approved, but like I'm saying is, typically on a Mass DOT roadway, unless you get special permission from the district, your work hours are limited to no work in the roadway from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. I'm not saying that work could happen, it just typically would need to be approved by Mass DOT.
So no work between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m.?
No work, only work between 9
Only work,
a.m.
I'm sorry,
and 3
okay.
p.m., not outside of the hours.
So that basically clears up your commuting hours?
So that they can
and whatnot.
commute and the commuting traffic dies down, then they can take their lane, they do their work, and then by 3 o'clock, they've got to have the lane open again.
Okay.
And what I will also
That's
offer
typical.
with respect to that is I believe it's just, I don't believe they're proposing any geometric improvements.
It's not my understanding, it's the
It's just traffic signal improvements, things like that. So that also
signal
lessens,
reconstruction, so.
so that also lessens the extent to which they would have to impact the physical roadway if they're removing, changing mast arms, signal heads, things like that.
Okay. And I don't know how much you can look into a crystal ball there, so, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if the signalization project is now going to improve this traffic from an F into an E or a D, what would be the impact of this project on top of the Cannabis project, which is not yet, that volume is not yet on the roadway, to possibly put us back into an F? Like, do we know how much improvement is supposed to come from, or is expected to come from this signaling project?
That's what
And the
our,
point is, if we get the relief finally that I'm sure people that drive that area have been waiting for 10 or more years, and then all of a sudden, we just throw more traffic right back at them and take all of that relief away.
I'll answer that. So our traffic study looked at exactly that. Existing conditions today, 7 years out, the no-build condition, which includes the improvements at the traffic signal as well as the marijuana dispensary, background developments, growth, all of that. And then our build condition puts our traffic on top of that. So like you said, that's all has been looked at and reviewed as part of our traffic study. So during I'll start with the AM and then I'll go to the PM. So for this particular intersection, it's a level of service overall, I'm talking overall, I'm not going to look at each movement, but it's a level of service D today. It expects to be a level of service D in the future, so with the improvements and with the marijuana dispensary. However, the delays go down, your VC ratio goes down. Then when you add our traffic to it, it continues to be a D with 2 to 3 seconds of overall delay to the intersection. So that's during the AM peak hour. During the PM peak hour, it's a D under existing. In the future, under no build conditions, without our project, it improves to a level of service C with less delay, less VC ratio. And our project, it stays at a level of service C overall. So we have done exactly what you're asking, compounded the historical growth, the improvements, the background developments, and then added and showed you what that is, and then added our traffic on top of it to show the impacts of our project.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just so we're clear, you concur with what was just said?
Yes. One thing that I will also add, just to kind of further that point, is looking at that intersection, just we look at the overall delays. As Heather had said, it's level service D during both the weekday evening peak hour and Saturday midday now, with
I think I meant that.
54 and 51 seconds of average delay. Then with the improvements, even taking into account that we're now adding additional traffic, the delay goes down to 39 and 31 seconds. So we're going down 14, 15, 10 to 13 seconds. Then with the addition of this project's traffic, we're back up to 42, 43, but that's still less delay than what exists currently.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything else on this one?
So you work for us, right? You're our consultant, correct? Okay.
Much as we seem to not want to.
Much as it seems to be, you guys are working so closely together, it just seems like you are supposed to be working for us, I thought, but, okay.
Hold on, no, we can't do that.
Okay.
That is in
All right.
fact
I'll
what he
retract
does.
it.
No, because some of us didn't like the answers we got. That is not the same thing as the
saying I didn't
answers
like the
being
answers.
wrong. No, you just said, he sounds like he doesn't work for us. I don't
he's-
want the
I-
people in the audience, and I don't want the people at home to think anything different than that. That is not fair to
I
him,
asked them, Steve.
us, or them. No, stop, hold on. I'm gonna say this because it matters. He does in fact work for us and the town, okay? Now, you don't have to like what he said, that is fine. I do not care about that here, out there, that's fine. But there should be no question as to who he works for. He is not working with them, he works for us, for the town.
Understand, Stephen, enough.
It's not, no, it's not enough. I will have my say. If we're gonna make those kind of comments, they're not right, they're not accurate. Some people didn't like what he said. That doesn't mean he didn't work for us, and it doesn't mean his numbers aren't right. I don't care how we end up or what we end up with at the end of the day, but that's not fair. It's not fair to his company,
I
it's not
apologize.
fair to him, and it's not fair to the people at home who think we're not doing our job, because they think the person who works for us doesn't work for us.
I understand you works for me, Steve. I just apologize to him. I'm sorry for saying that comment, but
No
you
worries, I
guys seem like
appreciate
you're working closely together, that's all. But
We are presenting the facts of the
Right,
traffic study.
okay.
That is what I will say, regardless of how it sounds, like the chair had said.
So let's just, maybe it's not clear enough. They have to work together because they're looking at the same thing. That doesn't mean they're colluding to come up with an answer.
I didn't say that, Stephen. Don't put words in my mouth. Thank you.
It's what you're describing, though. You might not think you're saying it, but when you say they're working together, what do you mean? When you say you think they're working together, what do you think that
Working
means?
together to get an answer for us, actually, absolutely.
Okay, but an answer that's factual, not to get anybody anything, correct?
No, I agree.
Okay.
That isn't what I said, but I apologize if I came across to you
No
as
worries, I
well.
appreciate your apology.
You as well, sorry.
All right, so that's it for traffic for now. If you want to, do you have anything else to add on the project itself?
Oh, one thing, do you want me to go over that?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
So I just have one question about condition number 4, about the traffic. It looks to be a traffic monitoring study. It says the applicant shall provide a traffic study so that the impacts of the change from the floors to the greenery are completely understood. We've done that part, so I don't know if that needs to be part of the condition. But it says follow-up traffic impact assess shall be submitted to the Community Development Office after 6 months of full business operation and repeat after 12 months of full business operation to ensure that all uses of the site are captured and mitigated if deemed necessary by the town. I didn't see that in any peer review letters, which is fine, but it's my understanding, and I wasn't at previous meetings, that that came up and it was kind of intended, if there was a problem, there should be a monitoring study. So just like some clarification on that, on how we want to do
We've
that.
started doing this recently. I don't know, how many have we done this with? 2 or 3. So.
Okay.
And I think it folds into the concern about traffic, bigger picture traffic, not specific to you or anybody else. It just feels like something that if we're a little on that unsure, we want to know if there's anything else. And it's one of the conditions that we keep control of,
Okay.
because we may come out and say, and I think we said this to you, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we thought the left turnout was going to be a problem, we might tell you have to remove it.
Got it. So-
Is that, remember, yeah, okay.
So we would do a
This has gone on a
traffic-
while, so I'm trying to
Got it.
remember, but.
So if we do a traffic monitoring, that could be a mitigation result if that's what it had to be.
Yeah, the point is that we want to have a little more look-see on several of these projects to see that we were right, or that everything was what we thought when
Okay.
we had it presented, and that it isn't in reality not working, and if there's something we need to try to address.
So it's contained to the site driveways and Main Street and what's happening on the site, is that correct?
correct. Yes,
Okay,
correct.
Perfect. I just wanted some clarification on that because it was a little vague.
Yep.
So around 3 months before or something, we could pull together a scope that you guys could review and make sure it's okay, so we're ready at 6 months after?
I mean, generally, just run it through the department, it's not going to have to come
Perfect.
before us.
Yeah.
We just want the end result.
Got it.
Really, it's only going to come to us.
Okay.
The info goes in, it's only going to come to us if we're
If there's
looking
a
at a
problem.
problem.
Got it.
And then we're going to call you guys back in and say, we got to address this, something's not working here.
Understood. Thank you for that clarification.
All right. So, nothing else on the project itself, is that right?
No,
Do
that'll-
you need to show them anything, the sidewalk or anything?
I could just note, the only major, I guess somewhat major change we made to the plans, I just wanted to note, and this came up in the VAI review, was that we did extend the off-site improvements a bit from what we were showing originally, specifically to add a new curb ramp, or a new wheelchair ramp, excuse me, on the opposite side of Collab Road, and actually extend the sidewalk. It ended up being about 100 feet of new concrete sidewalk, based on where the current sidewalk ends. Essentially, it's just bringing it to that. So just wanted to note that that was something that we were requested to do, and we did make that change.
Okay.
Besides that, it wasn't much to, I know there were concerns, there was some discussion about some circulation issues. I did kind of change the geometry here. That was one item that I believe you brought up, Mr. Chair, or requested, just to kind of direct folks, I guess, in the proper direction, using geometry, as well as additional signage that was requested as well was added.
All right, and we discussed, all the ground signage and all the signs on site.
Yep.
They have to stay, 100% upkeep, especially you've got the water and all that stuff running on there. I don't want the paint disappearing, because, that stuff's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, anybody else, anything before I open up to the audience?
I was trying to find the signage on here. Which drawing is it? I've been looking through the drawings.
Yeah, so it's on the site plan, sheet 5, and it's these, I'll zoom in on one, for example. These blocks here, these little circles with the lines and the labels that say R.
Okay, so
3-1,
everything
for
goes to
example.
a detail somewhere?
And it's actually on the sheet. If you scroll up to the left, this is the key for those designations. So I actually recall we had some discussions about the signage at the previous meeting, just to, I guess, clarify. A lot of it was at this location here that I was just referring to. We did add a one-way sign pointing left right here. That's at R6-1L. And then we have the do not enter signage, as well as a stop sign and a I forget if it's a no left turn or no right turn, excuse me, sign here. So when you pull up, you'll have a stop sign and a no right turn sign, as well as a one-way sign pointing left.
Okay, so, all right, so I just want to walk through this from the perspective of someone driving. So when I come into the site, right, in the right driveway, there's a no left or some sort of do not enter turn blocking me from that immediate left, which is the traffic coming either from the vacuums or the wash bay back out to the main queuing lanes.
That's correct.
So we
Yep.
have some signage there.
Yep.
On the other side, if I come out of the car wash, I'm okay to take a right or a left.
Correct. Yeah, because some vehicles do use the vacs after they wash.
Okay.
Or vice
And then, I don't know if this is more of a consideration just for your client and their customers, but have you considered what to do as far as if traffic does start to back up? The people in the vacuum lanes clearly have an advantage that they could just queue up and block off the wash lanes, which would eventually cause a shutdown of the conveyor system. So I don't know if you would consider some sort of prioritization, either a do not block this intersection or, some sort of yield to incoming traffic on the left so that the people coming out of the wash have priority to get out, because you can queue a lot longer through the vacuum area than you can from the car wash area. I don't know how you would do that, but that's just something that, when I was looking at it over the weekend, I thought you might want to take into account. And what I consider to be like a really busy day is like 2 days after a ridiculous snowstorm and there's salt and sand, and then all of a sudden it starts to melt and everybody's car is just gray.
Yep, absolutely.
To me, that's the busiest day. And I think of a day like that where, you could have a lot of cars in here.
What about a stop sign right before that crosswalk?
I was thinking you could do
We-
that. You could.
So right now, we have the stop, obviously here, right, for the vehicles exiting the car wash to let anyone, I guess, traveling from the backs out to have the right of way there. I guess there's really, I can't see any real reason why we couldn't flip that.
Actually, I don't see any reason why you couldn't just leave both, because you said yourself that the vacuum isn't this isn't, like, the vacuum's not gonna be banged out
Right.
constantly, where that's really the biggest problem with the cars causing the jam up. But if you're forcing them to stop for a second, that car that stopped because, coming out of the car wash, then has its chance to get out, again, presuming they follow the rules. That gives them that opportunity to get into line and not just have a line of cars keep coming out and you never get out.
Okay, no,
It
that's,
seems like if you want something to back up a little bit, you'd rather have some people that have to wait a little bit at the vacuums
Facts, yep.
than to shut the whole system down because someone can't get out of that. Does that make sense?
That was my point,
Okay,
sir, yes.
yep, makes sense.
And I mean, I could envision where you do have the 2 lanes, if it does get really busy, that people would start stacking up side by side with the left, people that want to go left going left, people that want to go right.
Correct.
And
Yeah, that's the idea and the reason for the extra wide pavement in there as well. So, yep.
so, but anyway, those are just more, observations than anything.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else on any of these?
Just one comment, Mr. Chairman. Do you think maybe by having people just decide where they're going left or right when they come out, maybe? Would that reduce some of the queuing back up? If someone's going right, they're not in the same lane, maybe they identify with a blinker, we're going left or we're going right as we come out into that area, maybe?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure exactly. Are you talking about this exit lane here or?
Yeah, the exit lane, if you're coming out, like coming out of the car wash, coming out of the vacuum.
Yeah.
And you say, I'm gonna go right towards Lowell versus waiting in line to go, everyone going left. Would that release some of the traffic coming out?
That's how it's proposed. That's why he has the wide pavement there, so that they can stack up left and right.
Yeah, we did that for that reason. I guess normally without the traffic concerns, queuing concerns, we may just have, one 12, 15 foot, whatever it may be, exit lane, just designated
Right.
out right or left. So we're trying to split it up to allow that. So because when you don't do that, sometimes honestly, people get a little bit of anxiety and they end up making a dangerous turn. So we're kind of letting them sit there and, think about it a little bit more.
Mr. Duffy, you good?
I'm good, yes.
With that, I will open it up to the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns? Just give your name and your address, and the floor is yours.
My name is Keith Pollock, I live at Veranda Avenue.
One more time, I'm sorry?
Keith Pollock, Veranda Avenue.
Okay.
I don't know if this question, I don't know how long this thing is going to last, but my question is probably to them is the turbine that's going to be running the vacuums and so forth, is there any information as far as what that's going to push out as a dBA decibels?
Yes, we actually did provide a sound study. I don't have a copy of it, I'd have to look it up, but we did submit a sound study to the town previously that addressed that, and it was based on a actual operational site, also one of the applicant sites.
So was it approved, or do you know what the decibel was?
Well, it falls under this whole application, so as far as an approval. we have done that.
75 decibels during daytime and 65 at night, if I recall
I
reading.
believe, I'd have to look it up before I.
We were provided with one. I don't recall we received any, we didn't get any feedback that said that the numbers that they submitted were a problem, correct?
Correct.
Well, those numbers, if that's the numbers, those are high, because we have a zoning law, bylaw, that states that that can't operate over 60 decibels.
It's not.
Yeah, the study was within the decibel level allowable in the zoning ordinance. I'd have to look it up, but we were within it.
Okay.
And we discussed that at the last meeting.
And just for a point of clarification, it's
Sure.
not a zoning bylaw, it's a general bylaw. So it wouldn't be specifically under the purview of this board, but it was submitted as part of materials for this application.
Well, there's a Massachusetts bylaw for that, and there's a zoning bylaw for this, as far as what that can push out. We have our own bylaw here. as
That's
far-
the general bylaw, not the zoning bylaw, yeah.
Oh,
Just
I'm
wanted to
sorry.
clarify.
My apologies.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, but I just wanted to make sure that situation that was checked out, approved, and you are within the code, or the bylaw, whatever it is, the general bylaw.
And also in a note, because we have it in the packet from our health department, they asked us to include two conditions or whatever, I'm not sure if they're not conditions or not, but one was about the car wash complying with EPA idling laws, and the other one was applicant provide information on how they will address noise should it exceed the town's noise bylaw, which is what you have in front of you.
Okay.
From 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., a measurement of 70 dBA at 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., a measurement of 65 dBA. So I presume that that's coming out of the general bylaw. So that's also something that we've been asked to include in our conditions or comments in the.
Yeah, but I'm still misunderstanding here, is because the bylaw, or whatever she's saying, I'm so confused, that the land use, it's not supposed to be over from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. It's not supposed to exceed 60 dPA. And at nighttime, and it doesn't have to do with them, but I'm concerned about the 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., that it can't exceed 60 dPA when you do the measurement.
I'll let Ms. Lauder pull, I mean, our own health department said 65, so I don't know.
Well, it's not. I got the law right here.
We'll give her a second anyways.
Okay.
So either way, it's not a zoning, so it's not us.
Okay, but,
So if it's the same as any other business there. If they're going over the decibels that are allowed.
Okay.
For example, the neighbor on the other side has had this issue, and it's the town that goes out and deals with it. It's not coming out of the board. We didn't address their decibels either during their permitting process. It
Oh,
was
so
done, that's
not part
something
of your
that,
thing.
anybody else making noise beyond what you're allowed to make, a noise ordinance. It's the same thing. It's town enforced, not this board enforced. Does that make sense?
well, maybe for clarification, if you're a planning board and you're going to approve somebody to build something, and their turbine is over the bylaw, the bylaw that's in here, the general,
I'm
whatever.
not saying it is. I'm not saying it is. I didn't say their turbine was over it. I'm saying if it were over
Okay.
it, that would be a problem.
Yes.
Which the town would enforce, not the board. That's all I meant.
Oh, not the board has no decision. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's what I'm saying.
All right, so I'd have to go to the
I'm
select.
I'm not saying that their equipment does violate it. I'm saying if they did, or if they made any other kind of noise that violated it from something else, it'd be the town that would enforce it, not the board. That's what I'm saying.
But you know, what I'm saying from a human standpoint, if you're the planning board and you're making a decision on what somebody's going to put into a,
Hold on, Ms. Lada?
No, please, finish
Okay.
your thought.
it just, from my standpoint, is that if you're approving somebody to build something, and if their decibel level is not adequate, and I don't know, maybe you guys did that, but to me, I would want assurances that they're going to be putting a turbine in, if it's going to be above what the thing says, that you would have a decision on whether or not, yes, you can have it, but you have to get a turbine that's lower when you build your building.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we're going to approve, if we approve the application,
Yes.
it's going to be approved
Okay.
that their turbine meets the noise statutes.
That's all I need to know.
If it doesn't, then the town will come in and issue a cease and desist or whatever until they can provide equipment that does meet the noise
Okay.
statutes.
All right.
It will not be allowed to continually operate
Perfect.
over the noise levels that are the town regulations.
Okay. That's all. That's
Okay,
all.
we have to work here in good faith, and oftentimes, we
Yeah.
have as-built and modifications and whatnot, where they come back and say, we couldn't do what you asked us to do, we tried to do this instead, is that acceptable? But basically, we have to start somewhere. So we're giving them the condition that this project can go forward if the vacuums and the turbines adhere to the noise statutes, the noise
Okay.
bylaw.
So you guys, you
If
people
it
are.
doesn't, that becomes a matter of enforcement by another town agency.
Okay, I'm just confused about that. I just really don't understand, maybe, I don't know, maybe somebody else can agree, but if you're putting something together and you already know it might be a problem, why wouldn't you fix it?
But we're not approving them to have anything that violates any town ordinance or anything else. We're not granting the ability
Okay.
to ignore anything, whether it's, I mean, I don't know another
Yeah, I-
example. I'm saying, nothing we're doing would be authorizing them to violate the town's rules.
Okay,
So unless it's a zoning issue and we grant some sort of waiver, which this is not something we'd be waiving, you have to comply with the town rules,
Okay.
separate and distinct from us.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, if they just suddenly have the lights blaring off the place 24/7, well, then they can't do that.
Right,
You know what I
okay.
mean? Like, so, we're not telling them they can.
right.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's the same thing. They're going to meet whatever rules they have to meet for all town rules.
Okay.
If they don't, then I'm just saying, it's not us that enforces that,
Yeah.
okay?
No, I'm not saying about enforcing, I'm just saying.
But no, we're not authorizing them to be louder than they're allowed to be, is the point. Like, that's not us. We're not authorizing them to have anything beyond what they're allowed.
Right. But when she mentioned that it was a 70 decibels and so forth, that.
I'm reading off our health department. I just read the letter,
Yeah.
that's all.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So for clarification,
Okay.
where the 70 decibels
Yeah,
came
okay.
from is that in our noise bylaw, there are two land use areas.
Right.
Land use area one is residential properties and grounds of schools, daycares, healthcare institutions, houses of worship and library, or cemeteries.
Okay.
And then the other is all other land uses. So
Right.
if it is not one of those things listed in land use area one, it is therefore land use area two. And as the health director mentioned in her memo to the board, the daytime levels from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. are in fact 70 decibels, that is the upper limit. And then nighttime levels, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. is 65 decibels. And their noise study that they sent along a couple of months ago, the initial filing, at the first request of the board, did not indicate that they're going to exceed those levels.
Okay.
And that bylaw is enforced by the police department.
Okay, yeah. And I'm only referenced that because, we've had this situation happen before. I'm a resident on Veranda Avenue, and I'm a resident, I'm not under the land use too. I'm a receiving a butter, so it changes. It goes from 70 to 60. And like I say, we've had a problem with this before with the noise. And what happened was, we had a situation where, the levels were too high, and the person, did what he had to do to fix it. But I'm just trying to find out whether now, like I say, you mentioned that it's 70. It's not 70 because I'm a resident and I'm in a butter.
Right, but you have to understand that you live next to a zone where the property that's in question has those numbers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
but
that'd be no different than someone in
See,
a
he's
residential
missing-
that lives next to an industrial.
Right.
Those change, but there's a line there somewhere where one touches the other.
Yeah, you're missing my point though, is because I understand exactly what you're saying, but because I'm a butter and I'm a resident, I'm not in the business part of the zone.
Okay,
Yeah, the
turn it
res-
around the other way.
Okay.
I guess what I would say is,
All right.
as a resident.
Yes.
And you have a residential piece of property. It's
Correct.
zoned as a residential piece of property.
Correct.
Would you want us imposing on you commercial rules?
Yeah, but into the bylaw, and she can clarify that, it's on the receiving end.
Right, but it's based on where the property exists. That's what I mean when I say you wouldn't want us to impose on you commercial rules.
You can't,
Because you
because
don't.
the bylaw-
live in a-
the bylaw doesn't let you do
But
that.
your property is not in a commercial zone, it's in a residential zone. This piece of property is not in a residential zone. They
But-
happen to butt up against each other.
But if the noise incorporates into, it's a.
I understand what you're trying to say, but that's not how the rule is written. The rule can only apply to the piece of property at issue, not where it goes after that, is the point.
So I have to go into the selectmen if that, I mean, like I say, I don't understand.
So the rules apply to the property that is generating the noise. So if they are a land use area two, they're held to that standard for the noise that they may generate. And
Right.
likewise, residential properties are land use area one, so that is the standard they're held to for the noise they generate. It would almost be impossible
If you-
to regulate the receiving end of noise.
Yeah, it has to be regulated because you put it in your bylaw. If that sound level encroaches into my property and it's above that certain thing, I'm the receiving end. He has a responsibility to keep that at 60 decibels. If I go out in my yard and that noise is cranking at 70 decibels, I have the authority to call the police because he's generating noise onto my property.
Yeah. Excuse me, Mr. Chair, may I interject on this? I apologize, I was in the dead zone,
Yeah.
I was having trouble pulling up the report. I have it here. So the real numbers are, so we have a table in our sound study. It's for the minimum measured hourly sound level in dBA. We are under the mass DEP limit, bear with me, mass DEP limit, which is 58 decibels during the day, we're at 48. And the Tewksbury limit is 60. So we're at 48 for the average day, and then for the night, the requirement, the Tewksbury limit is 60 dBA, we're actually at 41. Or I apologize, the Tewksbury limit is 50, I may have misspoke. We're at 41, however, and the mass DEP, for what it's worth, is 51. So we're below for both the day and the night.
Perfect.
I apologize. I just couldn't pull it
Simple
up.
as that.
Yeah,
That's all I was trying to do, this whole thing, and you answered it correctly. Thank you.
See, we delayed long enough, you found it.
Yeah, thanks.
I mean, it took a little while, maybe that's what it is,
You guys
because I
bought me
was,
time.
I
I lost
was, I was
my
reading the
internet.
bylaw and so forth, but thank you for that, because now I'm satisfied. Thank you.
I wish I got you that sooner.
Hi, my name's Donnie McLaren. I'm a resident of Tewksbury, 71 Johnson Road, also business owner at Wamisit Lanes. Own multiple businesses in Tewksbury, so I would speak on behalf of them. I would second the concern of that gentleman there with noise, because I had to go through an entire process with the Board of Selectmen to reduce our noise, and I am now subject to stay under 60 decibels, monitor it every hour on the hour for any events that we have. This is a process that had taken over 3.5 years to finalize with the Board of Selectmen and with the Tewksbury Police Department. This is a very sound-sensitive area. I don't think we've spent enough time talking about sound, but I do have a question for the applicant. Are you guys in violation of any sites currently operating right now?
I'm sorry.
Well, so first of all, you got to send it to me, you got to talk to me, but I think what is that, are you in violation of, are you asking for anything?
Any violation of any sound ordinance
Okay, so
issues
sound specific.
whatsoever. Sound
Okay.
specific.
Are you aware of any violations of sound ordinances? Would you have 18 of these?
Correct, we have no,
I got to send you up, I'm sorry.
we currently have no violations recorded.
Okay.
What if I was to tell you that I visited multiple sites and I would actually pose the fact that you guys are in violation and are exceeding the bylaws of specific locations currently at this very moment
We
while
gotta be a little,
operating.
so we gotta be clear about what we're asking, though. So when you ask the first question, and this is the way I would take it, is are you asking if they've been served?
If
as
they
being
were
in
aware, if they
violation?
themselves were in violation, not if they had received any violations, but if they are aware of any violations that they know of themselves, they don't have to have been violated by any ordinance law, but they themselves, are they aware that they are violating current bylaws at this very moment?
I guess we can ask, are you aware that you're in violation of a ordinance regarding sound?
No, we are not aware of any violations. But I will also add that specific to Tewksbury's project, we have invested in muffled and sound deadening equipment beyond what we operate normally, specifically due to the sensitivity that we saw with this project on our first planning board meeting. And we've made adaptations to our equipment to operate much quieter than we do currently at other locations where we do not see violations.
Okay, just for clarification, was that the number you were giving? Was that the number you were giving when you gave that 41 or whatever it was? Is that because of what he just described?
Tingsboro, correct. Yep.
Okay,
We study Tingsboro.
Yep. So that's correct.
okay, thank you, just for clarification.
What was the results from Tingsboro after your study?
The results are what are in the report, which I just went over.
And what were those numbers?
You'd like me to repeat them? I would have to get that out again. I just went over that.
It was below 50.
It was, they were under the allowable 50 for the day, 60 for the day and 50 for the night. They were below that. One was 40, it was 41 at night, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Address this here.
Right.
What's that?
I don't think we have to address
I think we may have to address it,
Hold on.
considering that
Hold on,
those decibel levels.
Hold on. I don't want to get off the rails here, because we've asked the question,
Yeah.
we've received an answer. We've gotten an answer, one, on have they been cited for noise violations. We've now asked, are they aware of having any?
Correct.
We've asked whether or not the ones that they're trying to put in here, they gave numbers for those. I don't want to go round and round, like, we're talking about the Tewksbury site. The fact that they may or may not have another site somewhere else, they just said that they're doing something different here anyway, so I'm not sure if you're going to get an apples to apples anyway.
I am addressing the fact that the information that we are receiving is a bunch of smoke and mirrors. It's not accurate. I have accurate data that'll show the complete opposite of what these guys are presenting today. And that's exactly why we're not talking about sound, is because it's one of the top reasons why these things don't get approved. There's a reason why it didn't get approved in Tewksbury on North Street. There's a reason why it didn't get approved in Methuen twice over. There's no use for it. We have a car wash across the street. There's plenty of use for the car wash across the street. We don't need another one. These curb cuts are tight. They're approaching my property. You sit here and you say that there's no money in car washes. You'd have a lot more, but you've got 19 car washes on paper right now on your website, and you're building 6 more this year. Based on the purchase price of that property and the build-out, I'd say that's about a $3.5 million investment times 6. That's a lot of money. So for me to sit here and say, hey, we're not going to get 1,500 cars, the machine is built for 120 cars an hour. It's not hard to do math to see that this thing is going to be pushing some serious cars. There's a reason why the queuing line is as long as it is, because you're anticipating a lot of vehicles, and those vehicles are going to be sitting right next to my property, and they're going to be queuing up minute after minute, second after second. A belt breaks inside your conveyor, a roller breaks inside your car wash, that line gets queued up, and my staff and my customers have to listen to the vehicles running. They have to they have to taste the emissions in their cheeseburgers and their chicken sandwiches. Right next door. My family built that business. My family is I'm 38 years in this town. My father, generations before that. familiar with Tumac Airport? That's Tewksbury McLaren. That's my family. We put everything on the line for the project that we built called Wamisit Lanes. We hawked everything up, and we bet and took a risk for everything, for this community to build it. And I'm not going to sit here and let that be compromised by these guys coming in here with their smoke and mirrors and their fancy reports and their colorful graphs and all of that stuff. Drive by one of their sites. Take your decibel level, the decibel reader, the same one that I have that's been approved by the Board of Selectmen and the Tewksbury Police Department. You'll see. I got a video right here that'll show you that you're almost pushing 80 decibels 140 feet away from the property line, across the street. It's smoke and mirrors. We don't need this thing in town. We have one across the street. Appreciate your time. This is my family's legacy, and I'll protect it at every cost, and I will go down kicking and screaming every step of the way to oppose this project. And I ask the board to take what I just said into account, to take the letter that I have here, copies that I'll issue to every single one of you guys, and deny this project. Thank you.
Anyone else with any questions, comments, or concerns? Yeah, we'll just, you'll be up next, that's fine.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I
that's good.
didn't realize I was cutting
No,
someone
no,
off. Let
that's
him
fine,
in.
doesn't matter. You were gonna come up either way, so it doesn't matter. Now's good. If you have an extra one, give one to Alex, please. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, if I knew there was someone else willing to come up to follow that act, I would have let them. I represent Don McLaren in Wamisit Lanes. My name is Don Bornstein. I'm an attorney at the office of Johnson and Bornstein. Our address is 12 Chestnut Street in Andover. You've heard in a very impassioned way from Don about his concerns. He said them to this board before. He has real concerns about traffic. He has real concerns about noise. He has real concerns about air quality. He's gone out and measured decibel levels at other similar locations and come up with readings that are well over the town's requirements and the state requirements. He has concerns that that's what you'll get here, because that's what this business does, is they reproduce that product. One of those locations that's over the decibel level, and Don is very aware of noise regulation because his business has been in a 3-year process making sure he's in compliance with it. One of those locations is the location that is the centerpiece of the study that the board's asked to rely on. So I think we should consider that. He and his family have established this business at Wamisit Lanes that utilizes a large outdoor patio space. That's an important part of their business. And to put this type of business next to it, the car wash, and I've called it before a mega car wash. This is not your father's car wash. This is like comparing an old-fashioned 5 and dime to a Walmart. These car washes are meant to generate huge amounts of traffic so they can generate good profits. There are correct locations for them. We would suggest to the board that this is not one of them. And you're here not only, of course, as you know, and I'm not telling you your business, you know it better than me. You're here not only for site plan review, you're also here for a use special permit. This use is only allowed by special permit. That means the board has to go through and find the various tests in the bylaw that in essence boil down to that this is a good location for this use, that this is a good use for this location. And I would suggest it's just not. It's replacing a very low volume traffic use in a florist shop and nursery. It's a seasonal low volume traffic use, and they're replacing it with one of the highest traffic volume generating businesses that you could put on that site. It's a huge difference. We've never heard the difference, at least not tonight, between what traffic is generated on that site now and what traffic will be generated. We're talking 2 to 3 cars a minute get spit out of that machine and into the traffic flow. And no disrespect to the traffic engineers, I've worked with both these offices. They are very good at what they do. But traffic engineers think about traffic different from residents and different from what board members, I think, should really think about traffic. That traffic study, as reviewed, basically says this river is in flood. It's at flood stage. It's at the top of its bank. So if you pump out your swimming pool into it, people aren't going to really notice because they're just going to be a little more wet than they were before. That study, and it was pointed out by one of the members on page 4, it talks about 2 major intersections are already at levels E and F, and this will make it worse. Then there's the conclusion from the traffic engineers that that's okay. I would suggest that's not the conclusion for the traffic engineers to make. That's the conclusion for the board members to make. Is that okay? You have 2 major intersections that are at or beyond their capacity, and is it okay to add another highly traffic-generating use to those things? And in addition to that, its own driveway is at a failure state right now for traffic purposes. And you've heard explained that they have taken their driveway that will be managing these 1,500 cars a day, and they've moved it as close to Wamisit Lane's property line as they possibly can. They would have put it closer, but they can't because the turning radius requires radius, so it's 30 feet of way. You would never allow that in a residential subdivision. You wouldn't allow an intersection of a road to be 30 feet away from a driveway because you'd be concerned about turning conflicts. And those are much lower traffic circumstances than what you have before you. And they've rightfully requested a waiver of you because they need a waiver because that's against standard. So I'll end there and just ask the board to consider, is this the right place for this use? Is this use appropriate for that location? Not only for my client and his property, which you've heard very passionately why he thinks it isn't, but also for that entire area and what it does for the community. You've heard the traffic numbers, that there's this improvement planned, and this project, and I guess the one other project that's approved, basically takes all that improvement away. So if you've been waiting 10 years for the state to relieve your traffic concerns, well, what you give with the left hand, you're taking away with the right hand on this project. So I just ask you to consider that and recognize that you're under a use special permit standard here. Thank you.
I think you guys in the back were up next.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Bill Kramer. I'm an attorney with Divine Millimet, 111 Amherst Street in Manchester, New Hampshire. I represent the property owner Trickett Realty Trust at 365 Main Street. As we've heard several times tonight, they're the car wash that's across the street, so to speak. My client would like the board to just be aware of some more specific information because there's some things that have been said at prior meetings, just to make sure you have all the facts. And then with me tonight is Christina Sideropoulos. She runs the day-to-day operations of the gas station and convenience store and car wash at the site. So the application had initially indicated that the nearest car wash was 3 miles away. I think it goes without saying that that wasn't quite accurate. It's less than 500 feet. And there was a representation that that car wash was closed down anyway, which at the time the statement was made, that was accurate. The property had been leased to a tenant that ran the gas station, convenience store, and car wash. That lease has ended. The tenant had, for whatever reason, shut down the car wash. They didn't want to run it, operate it, and maintain it. My client, as the property owner, has taken back control of that property, and they've now gone in within the last month or so. They've had the car wash inspected by New England Car Wash. They've done whatever's needed to get it up and running. And it's now operating. If you were to drive by there today or tomorrow, you'd see that it's now functioning, our car wash. So that is open and running. Christina wants to talk a little bit about sort of what their plans are for that car wash, what kind of services they offer. It's also a conveyor belt type of system. It's not as long as the Washville proposal, but it's a 30 by 50 building, 1,500 square foot building. It does have a conveyor style system that pulls cars through, provides different levels of service depending on what kind of wash and wax and that you'd like. So I'll turn it over to Christina. She can talk about that for you.
Hi, my name is Christina Sideropoulos, and my father owns the Petroil gas station and car wash at 365 Main Street, and he owns a few other properties in Tewksbury as well. So I've pretty much grown up in and around Tewksbury my entire life. And like Bill previously said, we did have a tenant there that closed the car wash. And since we've taken over, we did open the car wash back up. and it is currently running. And we do offer very similar stuff as the car wash that's now planning on opening directly across the street from us. So I would just like to say that we are open, we are running, and there is no necessary need for another car wash to open up directly across the street from us. So that's what we would like to say. I don't know if Bill has anything else he wants to add, but thank you.
Anyone else with any questions, comments, or concerns? Going once, twice? All right, I'll bring it back to the board. Anyone on the board with any additional questions, comments, or concerns from up here?
I have one comment, Mr. Chairman. Are you guys aware of the letters that we received? Do you have copies of the letters?
We do, yep.
Any comments about the letters from them?
Not at this time, no. Unless you do, Jim.
No, okay.
Mr. Duffy, anything?
I guess, I mean, going into the meeting and, you know, prior to, I was, you know, fairly sure that it was, you know, might have been a goal, but, you know, now I'm reconsidering, and I think that I would like to have some time to consider some of the rebuttal information.
Okay. Mr. Champion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So one of the items that was in our Board of Health was the no idling 5 minutes or longer, a problem which is generally bad for the environment, but could be, as it was passionately pointed out, exacerbated for people dining out on a patio. What measures will you be taking to ensure that your customers are in compliance with the no idling statute outlined by the Board of Health?
We would be happy to install signage in our vacuum area that would say, you know, no idling. And then in our processing queuing area, we would never have a violation of that idling because we were able to process the cars even on a busy day, quick enough to fall underneath that 5-minute idling period. Thank you.
Okay. Is it, in your general knowledge of your operations, even though one specific car may not be idling for 5 minutes, is it fair to say that if you have a fairly regular queuing process and cars passing through 1,000 a day, right, on an average day, not the 1,500 that would, you know, make for a banner day, but at 1,000 a day, the cumulative emissions from those cars going through the queuing area, would that not cause quite a disturbance to the area, the equivalent of you know, or more than several vehicles idling for 5 minutes, but instead you have 500 vehicles maybe idling for 1 minute?
I don't think it would change anything different than the traffic that sits on Route 38.
Okay, that's all I have, but that's it.
I think I agree with Mr. Duffy. There's been a lot kind of said here tonight, and I'd like to think about it.
Okay. The only question I guess I'd ask, or clarification, because I try to be as fair as possible, but when we had this conversation, part of the thing we said was, in the event that there's some queuing up at the end because it's tough to get back out into 38, one of the answers we got was, well, we can stop the system, because if that happens, we're going to stop the system. I can't say how long that is, but your normal run time wouldn't cause cars to queue up and idle for 5 minutes, but your inability to get the cars back out onto 38, shutting down the system, leaving people in the long queue line, could. So if you're saying, how would you address it, your answer was, that would never happen because we run the cars too fast. That's if your system's working and continues to work, correct? And in the event that you have to stop the system, and the cars have to wait over in the long queue line because we're waiting for cars to get out of their way to start the system up again. On, say, a busy Saturday, couldn't you in fact then have cars that are idling for more than 5 minutes? If that's true, if we presume that to be true, and maybe it's not, is there anything you can do about that?
So yes, there is always going to be a possibility that that could happen. However, we've designed the lot with those bailout lanes, and in the event we've had some sort of mechanical failure or some sort of traffic issue inside the tunnel that would keep the queuing to start to stack up, our attendants know to go ahead and move traffic out through the bailout lane to move off the property until we can make any kind of necessary repair that would be required.
Okay. And I'm not saying, whether that would happen, and I'm not saying whether or not that makes a difference to anybody. But what I would say is that, if you have a set of guidelines that you use with your attendance, I think we should probably get a copy of that.
Yes, we have operational parameters that we'd be happy to
I think,
provide.
because if that's your policy, then our expectation, again, depending on how this all goes, our expectation would be that you stick to what your policy is, and that the people on your site actually know that, and that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because that's the kind of thing that we are going to, or at least I would, if, we get to that point, consider putting in as a condition to make sure we have that, and that you're basically agreeing that that's how people on site understand how this is supposed to work. It's not, we really want the money, keep them there as long as possible until somebody complains. That's not what your book says, that's not what's supposed to happen. It's clear them out because something went wrong, because that's what you're presenting to us.
Yeah, not a problem.
All right. Anyone else? That's it right now?
That's all I have.
All right.
I don't know.
What I
know
will
there was one message from a business that does some sort of exercise class for autistic kids, I think it was, and it was like a low sensory type of thing that they do. I don't know, I wasn't sure if that's within our purview to ask if accommodations can be made around an existing, I'm assuming that she probably does it.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if she does it for free for the kids or not, but if there'd be a way to make accommodations
Do
for
you
that.
have a specific suggestion?
I just didn't know if there's a way to try to coordinate hours of operation around if those classes were once or twice a year, to try to provide some time for the children that are especially sensitive to loud noises and things of that nature.
I mean,
Where it's something that exists now, I don't know if there's,
I don't know if I have an answer for that. If you have a specific suggestion based on the information, then I guess we could make it and see what to get for an answer, but I don't have a suggestion for it, if that's what you're asking.
okay. So you've seen the emails I'm referring to. Her name is Kelly Boyle. She said she runs a class for kids with that have heightened sensitivity. If she were to approach you, would you be willing to make accommodation so that she could continue to host that class as she currently does?
We would make all considerations.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so what I definitely got out of Mr. Duffy and Ms. Lazardi is they want to kind of chew on what they got tonight. Does that sound right?
Correct.
So
How do we
Champion, you
get, how do
agree
we
with that?
figure out the accurate sound information? Do you have, these vacuums that you're planning on putting in, do you have them in operation at any of your other facilities? Or
Yeah,
is this the first
so the study was done at an operational site, with the same type of.
Which site?
It's a. Oh, yeah. Yep.
So we chose the Tingsboro location for the vacuums, which you're specifically asking for. So yes, it's the same muffled vacuum system in Tingsboro that's currently proposed here in Tewksbury. The one change that we did make is the dryer system within the tunnel. We've now used a different dryer system in Tewksbury, specifically designed for quiet operation, and
All right, don't do that. Don't do that.
in which we operate at many of our other locations.
Okay, so the drying system that you have is quieter than,
The one that we're proposing is much quieter than the one in Tingsboro. That's correct.
okay. So this dryer system, is that in operation at any of your other sites yet? Or is this the first time you're?
This is new technology to the industry, and we're using manufactured data based on real study that they've done in other facilities, not a Watchville facility.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Before we're finished, are there any asks or suggestions that anybody has come up with for anything that's concerning them to this point? Because I don't want to just end this if there's something anybody's said, I just want to get it out there now so that, if there's something they need to address or try to address, they know.
I would just say if there's any sound study information that we don't have yet, I'd like to see that in the next submission. Just whether it's the manufacturer's data or if you have actual data from the vacuums in use at other facilities. I don't know what a sound study looks like. I know what a light study looks like. It's just a ripple effect graph showing how the light, gets dimmer the further away you get. I know sound works the same way. Decibels are measured at 3-foot increments and so on. So if you have any of that kind of information, that would just help put this all in a very stark picture, which we could then, if any other residents or neighboring businesses were concerned about sound, now we've got something concrete to show them. I would just, when you come back, I would like to be able to close the book on whether or not we're looking at potential sound issues.
I think from my side, just kind of, we touched on it earlier too, the kind of the operation procedure if you do have start to have cars queuing up around the back. I think it'd be good to see information on that.
Mr. Duffy, anything?
No, I just, the emissions is something that I'd like to think about a little bit too, especially in its proximity to a restaurant, especially a restaurant with outdoor seating, and, that's, I don't know what you could possibly do to mitigate that, but, it's just something that I'd like to think about.
Okay. Mr. Vitale?
All set.
All right. So, I don't know. Not sure. I don't have any specific asks as of now. There's nothing that I can think of. You've heard the conversations tonight. You've heard the resident comments. If there's, other than what's just been mentioned up here, if there's something that you can or, wish to, do to address any of those, that's up to you, obviously, between now and our next hearing. I just because I want to make sure we do this, that we do this right. If we have an issue, if there's something that's still bothering someone, we need to voice it, and if there's an ask, we got to ask for it. If it's simply unaddressable, then that's fine, but I want to make sure we got it out there. So, we discussed traffic at length. Obviously, there's traffic concerns from members of the board, and the information we got may or may not alleviate those concerns. So if you have anything further traffic-wise that you wish to bring forward, we haven't asked for anything specifically, but clearly there are some concerns still regarding traffic, even with the results of any of the studies. So the studies may not have alleviated concerns at the board level, all right? So just so you make you aware of that. Obviously, we've got the questions about the emissions. So if there's anything, obviously they ask about the operational, and, if there's anything else, feel free to bring that. Am I missing anything that's bothering anybody right now? I just want to make sure.
My concerns
Yep.
are traffic,
Yep,
sound,
yep,
and pollution.
okay. So,
I have
it's pretty
those
much what we
concerns
had
still.
tonight. Yeah, so, you've got what you've got. If there's something else, fine. If there isn't, then we just go from there. But obviously, you leave here knowing that those three remain a concern from members of the board. Is that accurate? Does everybody agree with that statement? Okay.
Well, I didn't voice it specifically, it was mentioned here, but emissions is a very serious concern for me, where it is a food establishment next door.
All right. And maybe just to make it crystal clear too, as a polling issue, as of right now, and obviously the fact that we're continuing this gives you some indication, the board at this time would not feel that they would be supporting this without more information. Does that feel accurate for right now?
Accurate on my end, yep.
All right, so just so you understand that, I want to make sure that we're crystal clear that there are concerns that probably need to be addressed. I don't know if you can or you can't. I'm just throwing it to you so that you understand that we don't come back here in 2 weeks. If nothing's changed, then I don't anticipate the board's feelings about it changing. I don't know what you can or can't. I'm just making sure you understood that. Okay?
Understood, yeah.
All right? Everybody, that sound right to everybody?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. So do I have a motion to continue this till, classes, January, yeah. June 3rd at 7:25, please.
So move.
We have a motion made, and a second. Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right, that moves us on to agenda item D. The applicant has requested, that's 1563 Andrew Street. The applicant has requested that we continue that until our June 3rd meeting as well. We have that penciled in for 7:20, so I have a motion for that. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Yes, sir.
I do want to thank the board for their time. I do apologize getting heated. It comes from a good place, just very passionate about my business and the community in Tewksbury. And thank you for your time.
All right, so with that, we will move on to agenda item E, 910 Andover Street. This is continued from our 429 meeting. Once you guys are all set, you gave names for the record. The floor is
Yes.
yours.
Good evening, Bill Ahern from Melmark for 910 Andover Street.
You got John Keaveney with CAC, and then we're joined with Randy Mirren of Boulder Engineering as well. Yeah, just want to thank everyone for having us back here for the third time. Since we last spoke, we've been very hard at work at closing out as many of the open questions that we had with both TEC, the engineering department, as well as the board. And I believe any of the remaining questions have been coordinated in Ms. Lauder's updated draft set of conditions, but we've been hard at work basically trying to close out as many as possible. One specific point of discussion with the board that we provided an updated exhibit on, and this is right behind you, but it specifically relates to that pylon signage. One of the things we said we would address was basically showing the existing sign as is compared with our proposed sign, and then compared with a compliant sign. So if you look here, right here, sign on the left, that's the existing, that's at 116 square foot total sign area. The one in the middle is what we're proposing. And you can see we go down from 116 square feet to 97 square feet of signage. So a smaller sign, but still above the bylaws of 50 square foot maximum. You can also see from a height standpoint, we're at 18 feet to match the existing signage. The bylaws state a 20-foot maximum, so we're 2 feet below that maximum. On the right-hand side, that's where we show the compliance sign. So two of the downsides with this sign specifically relate to the total size of the sign, even with, and we're showing enterprise here for reference. You can see from their sign right now, going to a compliant sign that matches the aesthetics that we're going for, substantially smaller, substantially lower. So that's where we feel like the proposed sign that we're showing is a nice middle ground that meets our aesthetic, I guess, goals with the property. And I think that was the main point of discussion that we were speaking with the board last time. So happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
All right. We'll start with Mr. Vitalia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for submitting that sign. Review and so forth, and looking at the different proposed signs and compliance signs. I wouldn't have a problem voting for the sign you're looking for, to tell you the truth. Not, I mean, it's a little bigger than it's supposed to be, but I wouldn't have a problem voting for that for you guys. But with that, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lazardi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also agree on the sign. I appreciate you guys including the, a compliant version of it, but I think the proposed sign is the definite improvement over what's there now, and it fits the aesthetic. So likewise, I'm in support of the proposed sign.
Mr. Duffy.
I have no problem as well with the sign waiver. I just have a quick question on the engineering issues.
Yep.
If you, because I noticed, at least on the letter that I have, that engineering is withholding a recommendation because have those issues been addressed?
They were incorporated into the revision that was submitted to TEC, or excuse me, TEC?
Yep,
Yes,
exactly.
sorry, I have a lot of peer reviews going at the same time. Those revisions are a part of the resubmittal to TEC, and they accounted for them. But I did solicit feedback from the DPW specifically to get their feedback on our utility systems, because TEC didn't have the knowledge of our system to be able to comment on it, so it was all incorporated into the subsequent package.
Okay.
Yeah, like specifically some of that pipe sizing, we incorporated into the updated set.
And I have one more request too. I want to be the first in line for when the coffee shop opens.
You got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I do appreciate the study on the signs. Either of these options is absolutely an improvement over that existing sign, which is obviously a holdover from a long ago time. One of the questions I had was, so we have Enterprise Bank, we have another sign area that's the same size as Enterprise Bank, then you have a couple of smaller ones, then you have two tiny ones at the bottom. Do you have, besides Enterprise, do you have that many more sign requirements on the site?
So it's White, Dove, Tessie's, Enterprise in the one building, and then the other one would just be us, Melmark, so.
And maybe for the coffee shop as well.
Oh, so, and then the coffee shop, right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, that would cover them all. Oh, no, there'd be one extra, yep,
But that bottom one could be switched out to a single.
single, yeah.
So I guess, where I'm going with this is if you don't need all of that sign area, could we maybe eliminate the excess sign area? And that would bring us just a tiny bit closer to compliance?
Well, I think because we do have the 5 tenants,
Yeah, you would just make that bottom 2 a 1, otherwise, I mean, if you cut off half of it, it would look weird, right?
yeah, because then we'd only have the 4 there. So I think, like, if, in terms of,
Couldn't you take out one slice and then move the 2 up? Or move the whole thing down, depending on your perspective?
we could, I think we would rather not move the total signage down because there is advantage to having, especially from Enterprise's perspective, having a taller sign there. And I think just from a proportion standpoint, the base right now is a good, solid base for the overall size of the sign. If that starts to get a lot taller and signage smaller, the proportions almost start to match too much versus having the sign being the main focal point there.
Okay, because it looks like the sign's in a pretty clear area, right? There's not a lot of trees. This isn't like the one we had to review on 495 where it had to get above 40-foot pines. I mean, this isn't, the area around the sign is all cleared out. And Andover Street, while it does have business, you are moving more into the residential area of it. So I'm just looking for opportunities to try to scale it down while still giving you the full effect. So my question is, would it create a hardship for you to eliminate one full slice and lower the sign down?
I think it would, just from the standpoint of Enterprise Bank's signage being lower. I know you're saying, I understand your point saying there's not trees and whatnot around there, but I still believe there's an advantage to height, even if it's by itself, just from being able to see it from farther away. Sorry for the technical difficulties again. And I would just say too, we are 2 feet below the height maximum of the bylaws.
Okay, no other comments?
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty much, you don't still have the original rendition, do you?
Well, this, the original site package?
No, the one you gave us before, that was the colored version, like your rendition version of that sign.
Yeah, last page of that.
Let me,
No, he was looking for the other one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, because I mean, I think seeing some of those aesthetic pieces.
Yeah, definitely.
That kind of does it for me too, in terms of being okay with this version. And it also answers the question about the address, because that's always important. We want that on there where people can see it. So clearly that will be seen. So, I'm all set with the sign, so. And Mr. Duffy already asked the couple of outstandings that we had on here. I'll ask before I open it up to the audience, you've seen the draft of the conditions and whatnot?
Yep.
You have no issues with any of that?
We had one comment that we sent to Ms. Louder.
Yes, so on comment number 7, 11, excuse me. Comment number 11, they had asked for additional language so that it reads as follows: "The applicant shall inspect the proposed discharge point for overflow runoff to confirm that no adverse effects, including but not limited to flooding or erosion to abutting properties, occurs in the proposed condition." So just adding those two, additional word and additional clause, and I don't see any issues with that.
Okay, so none of the board members have any issue with that, do you?
All set.
No?
All set.
All right, so, and there's nothing additional that we're looking to add beyond that anybody's aware of, correct?
Not that I'm aware of. This captures everything that was in previous discussions with the board, with TEC's proposed conditions. A lot of it's submitting documentation before building permits are issued, and then for convenience and completeness, I listed the deviations from the zoning bylaw that they are afforded under the Dover Amendment, just so everything is understood, and it's incorporated that these deviations are only allowed because of the protection provided by the Dover Amendment. And one of the conditions is, in the event that Melmark is no longer the owner-operator of this operation, that we must be notified, because it would then become a non-compliant use. And that's a part of the conditions they accepted.
Okay, everybody feels good about these? Nobody has anything to add, correct?
Yes.
All right, so with that, I'll open it up to the audience. With any in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns on this? Going once, twice, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to close the public hearing.
All right, I have a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Now, as to the site plan review, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the site plan review with the appropriate waivers and conditions.
Yeah, so as listed and discussed this evening.
Yes.
Yes? All right, so I have a motion made, do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. As to the land disturbance permit, do I have a motion on the land disturbance permit?
I make a motion that we approve the land disturbance permit with the appropriate waivers and conditions.
We have a motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thanks, everybody, appreciate it.
All right, that brings us to correspondence. No specific correspondence. We didn't have any. Other business not known at the time of the posting of this agenda. Anybody have anything like that?
Just one question. Have we been approached about the long-range planning committee?
The long-range, no, I don't think so. We weren't part of that, right?
I have not
They're
received
going to ask
it.
for one of us to be on it, I believe.
I thought we weren't.
So that was brought up as a suggestion during the select board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and I have not received any official word as to whether the board has to designate any number of members. It may be coming down the pipeline, but I haven't received that correspondence yet from the clerk's office or the select board's office.
Mr. Ciampa, in bringing it up, is that you volunteering?
Oh, no. I fell for that already.
Don't miss the next meeting. All right, anybody else with anything that was not known before the posting of the agenda that they wish to discuss?
All set here.
All right. Wait, no, okay. So that leaves us with adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. We'll see you next time.